A Conservative MP has asked the Prime Minister to treat one of Britain's most high-profile environmental groups like a terrorist organisation. Gareth Johnson is the MP for Dartford and Kent, where the Just Stop Oil group has repeatedly blocked the M25 motorway, causing disruptions for tens of thousands of people. At Prime Minister's questions, the MP said the environmental group should now be subject to much harsher punishment.
Last month, Just Stop Oil clambered up the Dartford crossing, causing chaos for days. They then attacked artworks, the M25 and anything else to cause misery and mayhem. These people are not protesters, they are criminals. Will the Prime Minister therefore consider making Just Stop Oil a prescribed organisation so that they can be treated as the criminal organisation they actually are?
Mr. Speaker, the kind of demonstrations we've seen recently disrupt people's daily lives. They cause mass misery for the public and they put people in danger. The police have our full support in their efforts to minimise this disruption and tackle reckless and illegal activity. The Public Order Bill will give them the powers they need, and I look forward to seeing the support that that bill receives from every part of this House.
So, if Just Stop Oil could be prosecuted like terrorist groups, how would this change environmental protests? Well, we asked Sky's police commentator Graham Wetton to explain.
It changes significantly the way the police would deal with them. Their actions, their supporters, anyone that knows that they're going to take direct action in any time means that everybody then is liable to arrest. So it changes the way the police approach them. If they do come out on the street, it also opens up an avenue of monitoring of the individuals and the groups involved for their actions. So it does change significantly. But for me, that's a very big step to take. If someone's arrested under the Terrorism Act, they can be detained for far longer than under the normal legislation that police use, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. So it does change massively the way that people are dealt with once they are detained. They can actually be held incommunicado for a longer period of time. So it does change massively the way that police deal with them. And it's a suggestion at the moment to prescribe them. So when you look at the definition of what a prescribed or what a terrorist organisation that is prescribed is, it does fit it. I can see why people are looking at it and thinking it fits it. For an organisation to be prescribed, it has to fit certain criteria. And I can see why when you look at it in the literal letter of the law, the way it's written, they do actually fit part of the description of being a prescribed organisation. But for me, they haven't gone far enough yet to reach that status, that category. For me, they would cross that threshold when they actually start causing harm to people, actually injuring people, which they haven't got. They're a non-violent direct action group. Their cause is just. People understand climate change, but for me, their tactics, their methods, the leaders and the organisers of the group are actually pushing towards direct action and confronting the public and alienating the very people who need on their side.
OK, well, let's speak now to the environmental campaigner Tina Rothery, who's the co-founder of the Nanas Against Fracking group. Hi, Tina. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you've been protesting, against fracking in Lancashire for more than a decade, and you've actually been arrested for demonstrating. So how did that play out? Did they keep you detained for long? Were you charged with anything? What happened there?
I've managed to escape without a criminal record, and a lot of the arrests were just sort of spurious and dropped later. I've spent 2 terms in jail, but only, for 12 hours and 7 hours. But the point being that it's a disruption to your life and also a huge insult to who you are as a human being and why you're doing what you're doing. They talk about the fact that they would arrest us under this act in order to stop the misery and mayhem. And yet that's what we're trying to prevent, is the misery and mayhem that will come if we continue to degrade nature, pollute the skies, throw sewage in our waterways. These are the things. And the only thing I agree with them on is the fact that we will need a law to stop protests, but that law would have to criminalise those who are actually doing the harm, the fossil fuel companies, the polluters. They're the ones who should be criminalised. There's a climate and ecology bill going through now. And if that gets through, then that would stop people like me having to blockade trucks, stop people throwing soup at Van Gogh. Because what we're doing would be not protected. It wouldn't be necessary because the stuff that causes harm would be illegal, as it should be. You look at things that the industries themselves have in their favour. There's an energy treaty that allows a company in Britain to sue Slovenia for banning fracking because they'll lose profit. We don't have tools like that. And yet all we're seeking to do is protect our families, our children in the future. What people
But
do
a lot of people, Tina,
to get
Tina,
attention. Sorry.
Yeah, whenever this comes up, it's always, the argument is, listen, we get the message and what you're saying, but how people say it is the problem. I mean, do you think that some groups are now going too far? And although the Prime Minister did stop short of agreeing to the move, he warned that the protests had caused, as you just pointed out, mass misery for the public and that they put people in danger. Do you think that the problem is that the way they go about doing this is too much now?
So you say they got the message. Did they? What are they doing? How have they responded? And in what way have they got the message? Because it doesn't show.
They would say that they're doing, that they're working towards it. We've just had COP27 wrap up. Our government had these policies in place. They would say, we understand and we're working towards it.
Well, right now, the people I would say were the criminals are the people in the energy sector who are overloading our bills, and the money still goes into new fossil fuel investments. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, no, they haven't heard us, not loud enough. And what those
I'm sure they would refute the claims that they're criminals. But how much public opposition, how much public support have you seen for your protests? And
for ours, huge. And we had a lot of support.
Which way? Support or?
Oh, yes, support from our community, from the residents, from the people locally, from our council who rejected the planning. But of course, Westminster overturned that and didn't listen to our council or us. What Just Stop Oil do is not in the same way that maybe I would protest. But I look at these young people and I understand their desperation. When we were young, we were growing up with a whole future ahead of us. What are they growing up with? With this fear and uncertainty and pollution.
Do you think that there's a danger that if this does go through, that there could have a chilling effect, that people won't possibly protest if there is the chance of criminal charges?
What is a democracy without protest? Can it even call itself a democracy if it doesn't permit it? I think there's a big danger, and this is a step too far. This is a step way too far to jump straight to a law that would criminalize me and people like me from saying, no, I will not have this. It will harm my grandchild. So I must raise my voice. So, and I would imagine then that if you look at things like union strikes, when does it then also apply to them standing out there protesting for their rights?
Okay.
This is going to completely change the whole way that we operate as a society and a democracy. And it turns it into what would look a bit more like a dictatorship.
Okay. Tina, thank you so much for talking to us. We're going to have to leave it there, Tina, but really, thank you so much for talking to us.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Well, in other climate news today,